I never imagined that my life would collapse so thoroughly and so widely. To be completely honest, I never thought that the individuals I trusted the most would be the ones who bring me to ruin. I recall being in the kitchen with my younger sister, Chloe, as my dad, Mark, casually broke the news over coffee last summer, announcing a family trip. He said, "We're all going to Italy for 2 weeks," as if it were a non issue. I was thrilled at first. I had always believed that Dad and I were close. After a few stressful months, I thought this vacation would be the ideal opportunity to get back in touch. However, Dad paused and turned his gaze to Chloe when I asked him about the specifics. I became aware that something was wrong at that point. I tried to speak in a pleasant tone as I inquired, "So, when are we leaving?" Dad cleared his throat and said, "Well, your mom and grandma are coming too. Chloe and I are leaving next Saturday." Confused, I scowled. "What about me?" The grating grin that Chloe always wears when she feels good about herself curved her lips. "Oh, Dad didn't tell you?" she replied, her voice brimming with false innocence. "It's kind of a small group trip. Not enough space for everyone." I felt sick to my stomach. I expected Dad to rebuke her as I glanced at him. As if this were a little annoyance, he simply sighed. "Look, Hannah, it's not that we don't want you to come. It's just that there weren't enough tickets. You understand, right?" I tried to take in what I was hearing as I looked at him. "So you just decided I wasn't important enough to make the cut?" he asked, referring to my deliberate exclusion. Chloe chuckled. "Don't be dramatic, Hannah. It's not a big deal. Not a huge deal?" My thoughts were racing. "How long have you been planning this?" His father stroked the nape of his neck. "A few months." "Months," I said, my voice breaking. "And you didn't think to mention it?" "As if I were being crazy," Dad sighed. "Hannah, we thought you'd understand." "Know what? That I was no longer a member of the family? That I wasn't even worth an additional plane ticket since I was so unimportant?" My eyes were burning with tears as I ran out of the kitchen. I could hear Chloe laughing as I went down the corridor. Trying to breathe, I pushed my back against the door of my room and locked myself in. I stayed apart from everyone for the following few days. I couldn't bear to look at Dad's or Chloe's arrogant faces. On the day of their departure, however, I saw them carry their bags out the door while standing at the top of the stairs. Dad put a loving hand on Chloe's shoulder and grinned at her. He probably didn't even glance up at me. I experienced a deep ache in my chest as the door closed behind them. I collapsed on the ground and sobbed till my throat ached. I hoped Mom would come console me, but nobody did. While they were in Italy for 2 weeks, I sat at home and looked at Chloe's endless photos on social media. Rome exploration, Tuscan wine sampling, and dinner in Florence. Dad was there, grinning, in all the photos, appearing at ease, joyful. I suppose it was simpler to be content without me. Dad pretended nothing had occurred when they returned. All he did was throw his luggage in the hallway and say, "Hey, Hannah." No apology, no explanation. "How was the trip?" I said, sounding more icy than I meant to. Dad said, "It was great," as he walked past me and into the kitchen. With her Gucci sunglasses resting on her head and her sun-kissed skin shining, Chloe leaped in behind him. She replied, "Oh my God, Florence was amazing," and tossed her purse on the couch. "We met this guy, Matteo, and he—" I said. "I don't care," angrily. Chloe raised her eyebrows. "Geez, someone's bitter." I turned to Dad. "Seriously, you're not even going to explain why you left me behind?" Dad let out a sigh. "Hannah, we've been over this. There weren't enough tickets." I sneered. "You planned this for months. You could have gotten another ticket." His words. "It wasn't that simple." My voice was trembling now as I said, "Yes, it was. You just didn't want me there." Dad's expression hardened. "That's not true." With my heart racing, I took a step closer and asked, "Really? Then why didn't you tell me about it when you were planning it? Why was it so easy to cut me out?" Dad didn't respond. His quietness was like a slap. Chloe gave an eye roll. "You're being so dramatic." "It's not like we abandoned you in the woods." My hands clenched into fists as I turned to face her. "Shut up, Chloe." "Make me," she said snidely. I sprang forward, but Dad stopped me. "Enough!" he yelled out. "Hannah, go to your room." My jaw dropped. You're seriously taking her side right now? Hannah, he said in a harsh, piercing voice. I staggered back toward the steps, tears burning in my eyes. Got it, I remarked sourly. Loud and clear. Chloe's laughter reverberated behind me as I ascended the stairs. I fell onto my bed after slamming my door shut. I had the sensation that my chest was giving way. Hours passed while I lay there, crushed under the weight of rejection. What it meant was more important than the trip itself. I was a last-minute idea, spendable. Even though Chloe had always been the best kid, this was different. This served as evidence. I wasn't wanted by my own father. The worst thing was that I wasn't even shocked. Not everything returned to normal after the vacation. How were they able to? Dad pretended that nothing had happened and that it was okay to leave me behind. While Chloe would talk endlessly about an Italian man she had met, he would use his laptop to answer emails at the dining table. Mom would nod and grin without even looking at me. I seemed to have completely vanished. I gave up attempting to eat dinner with them. What was the purpose? I would either skip meals entirely or eat in my room. They didn't notice. Or they didn't give a damn if they did. About a week after they returned, one evening, I was watching TV when Dad entered the living room. Chloe went out with her buddies, most likely flaunting her brand new Florence expensive handbag. Dad sat down beside me on the couch, as if nothing had happened, saying, "Hey, kiddo," I didn't even give him a glance. "Hannah," he said in a softer tone, "I understand that you're upset." I narrowed my eyes and turned to face him. Upset? You think that's what this is? He let out a sigh. It wasn't personal. We just couldn't. Stop lying, I said sharply. You had months to plan that trip. If you wanted me there, you would have found a way. Dad gave his temples a rub. It's not that simple. Heat rushing to my face. I stood up and said, "It was that simple. You left me out on purpose. Just admit it." His gaze grew gloomy. "Hannah, that's not fair." "Not fair?" I said with a sour laugh. "Do you know what it was like sitting at home, watching Chloe post picture after picture of you all having the time of your lives? Do you know how humiliating it was when people asked why I wasn't there?" Dad's jaw tightened as he stood. "I'm not doing this with you right now." "Of course you're not," I yelled. "You never want to deal with anything when it's uncomfortable." Dad seemed to open his mouth to speak, but he simply turned to leave, simply walked away. I realized then that I wasn't even worth battling for. I didn't speak to him again after that. Why should I make amends if he didn't care enough? However, Chloe wasn't going to let me go in peace. About 2 weeks later, Chloe came in the kitchen one afternoon when I was getting a snack. She was wearing the same arrogant expression that she always had when she was going to spoil my day. She said, "Hey, loser," as she leaned over the counter. I opened the refrigerator and rolled my eyes. "Go away, Chloe," she chuckled. Still salty about the trip? I forcefully closed the refrigerator door. "Do you seriously have nothing better to do?" She smiled broadly and added, "Calm down, Hannah. It's not my fault Dad didn't want you there." My entire body froze. "What did you say?" Chloe took a step forward, her eyes sparkling. "You really think Dad just forgot to buy you a ticket? Please. He didn't want you there. You would have ruined the vibe. In my ears, I could feel my heartbeat. You're lying." Chloe gave a shrug. "Believe what you want." Instead of slapping the arrogant expression from her face, I made myself move away. She called for me halfway down the hallway. "You know Dad likes me more, right?" My hands clenched into fists at my sides as I came to a standstill. I turned around slowly. "What?" Chloe grinned broadly. "He told me once that he's proud of me, that I'm going to do something with my life." Her pupils widened. "What's he ever said about you?" My throat constricted. I was unable to talk. "Exactly," Chloe replied in a whisper. I don't recall making the trip to my room, but all of a sudden I was sitting on my bed, my hands shaking. My thoughts were racing. Is it possible? I reflected on our childhood. Chloe consistently received more affection, attention, and appreciation. Dad took her out for ice cream when she received a B+ at school. It hardly merited a pat on the back when I received straight A's. However, this was terrible. This was deliberate. I also began to notice other things. The way Dad and Chloe would giggle like old friends while watching TV together on the couch. Dad would inquire about Chloe's day, but never about mine. In front of me, he would express his pride to her. Favoritism was no longer the only factor. It was a rejection. I began to fully withdraw. I would go to school, return home, lock myself in my room, and then do it all over again. At dinner, I gave up attempting to strike up a conversation. Not even Mom noticed. Or perhaps she simply didn't give a damn. Chloe then went too far one afternoon. Chloe was sitting on my bed, looking through my journal when I got home from school. I snatched it out of her hands and said, "What the hell are you doing?" Chloe merely grinned. "Wow, Hannah. You've got some dark thoughts in here. Get out." I pushed her in the direction of the door. She laughed and raised her hands. "Relax. You know, if Dad saw this, he'd probably send you to therapy." The blood in my face started to run out. "If you tell him," Chloe grinned broadly. "What? Are you going to cry? Go ahead. Maybe Dad will finally give you some attention." I lost my temper. She staggered backwards into the wall after I gave her a hefty shove. "Get out." Chloe's face contorted with rage. "You're really insane," she growled. "No wonder Dad didn't want you on the trip." She slid out the door giggling as I lunged at her. The walls shook when I slammed the door shut. My hands were shaking as I dropped to the ground. My eyes were burning with tears, but I fought the need to cry. It's okay if Dad didn't want me. It's okay if Chloe wants to destroy me. However, they were going to discover something crucial. I wasn't going to go away in silence. Something changed in me after that day. I gave up trying. Quit acting like that. It's okay if they didn't want me. I could live by myself. I no longer sat with my old friends at school. They didn't notice much, because the majority of them had already begun to move in the direction of Chloe's group. I would pretend to study while eating lunch in the library while wearing earbuds. It was simpler than listening to Chloe and her pals giggle at some inside joke while sitting by yourself in the cafeteria. It seemed as though I wasn't even at home. Dad didn't talk to me very often. Mom was too preoccupied to inquire about Chloe's weekend plans or the new clothing she wished to purchase. Conversations during dinner were one-sided, clearly on Chloe's side. As I pushed food around my plate in silence, I would question why I had bothered to come. Dad was watching a basketball game on the couch one evening when I entered the room. He didn't even raise his head. "Hey, Dad," I said. My voice sounded tiny. His response was nothing more than a grunt. I took a deep breath. "Can I talk to you for a second?" With a groan, he turned down the TV's volume. "What is it?" I took a seat on the couch's arm and twisted my hands in my lap. "Did you really not want me on that trip?" Dad squinted his eyes. "What?" "Chloe said you left me behind on purpose." His lips clenched. "I'm not discussing this, Hannah, but..." His tone was abrasive as he stated, "You weren't left behind on purpose?" Things got complicated. We didn't have time to adjust the plans. A knot in my chest tightened. "You had months to adjust the plans." Dad's mouth tightened. "I said I'm not talking about this." "You mean you're not talking about it because you know I'm right?" His gaze grew gloomy. "Watch your tone, Hannah." I got to my feet. "You know what? Don't bother explaining. I already know the truth." "Hannah." I was on my way to the stairs, though. I had trembling hands. My throat ached. Curling up on my bed and trying to breathe through the knot in my throat, I closed myself in my room. I had stopped crying. I had had enough of crying. I hardly talked to Dad after that. Or your mother. Or Chloe. Like a ghost, I floated around the home. Naturally, Chloe didn't slow down. When I entered the kitchen one day, Mom and Chloe were seated at the counter. Chloe was using her phone to show her something. "See?" Chloe replied, her sweetness evident in her voice. "This dress would look so cute for spring formal." Mom grinned. "Oh, it's perfect for you." As I opened the refrigerator, Chloe's eyes shifted in my direction. "Oh, hey, Hannah." "Hey," I whispered. Chloe inquired, "You're not going to the formal, right?" I tensed up. "Why?" Chloe grinned. "Just wondering." Mom's gaze grew softer. "Hannah, maybe you should go. It could be fun." "Yeah," Chloe replied with a brighter smile. "It's not like you'll have a date, but you can probably tag along with one of the pity invites." My chest constricted. "Chloe," Mom replied in a gentle tone, "be kind." Chloe gave a shrug. "Just saying." Without saying another word, I picked up a Coke and left. I almost dropped the can because my hands were trembling so severely. I was sitting in bed that night looking through Instagram. Pictures from Chloe's dress fitting with her friends had previously been shared online. "Can't wait for the greatest night ever," was the caption. My throat constricted. I threw my phone on the bed after closing it. When Chloe and her pals showed up at the lockers the following day at school, I was strolling down the corridor. They were accompanied by Ethan, Chloe's boyfriend. He looked down at her as if she were the only person in the world, his arm around her waist. Chloe grinned when she saw me. She yelled, "Hannah!" loud enough for everyone to hear. I went cold. Chloe approached me and said, "You know what? Ethan is taking me to the formal." "Isn't that adorable?" Her pals chuckled. I took a deep breath. "Yeah, great for you." Chloe grinned broadly. "Oh, and don't worry. I'm sure someone will take pity on you and ask you last minute. Maybe one of the band kids." Her pals chuckled more. Ethan glanced in my direction. He seemed to be suppressing a smile as his mouth quirked. Something broke inside of me. "You know what, Chloe?" I said in a voice that could be heard above the din. "It must be exhausting keeping up this whole perfect princess act." Her smile wavered. I turned to face him and asked, "And Ethan? Don't worry. You won't be stuck with her for long. Chloe goes through boyfriends like she goes through Prada bags." Ethan's grin vanished. Chloe's face flushed. She growled, "You're just jealous." I gave a chilly smile. "If that helps you sleep at night." I felt their eyes pierce my back as I turned to leave. I was afraid my heart might burst through my chest since it was beating so rapidly. Chloe barged into my room that evening without knocking. She demanded, "What the hell was that?" Not even my eyes left my book. "What was what?" Chloe's face was flushed with rage as she said, "Don't play dumb. You embarrassed me. Good." Chloe's gaze flickered. "You seriously think you can make me look bad?" Calmly, not trying to, I said, just pointing out the obvious. She tightened her jaw. "You're pathetic, you know that?" "Sure." Chloe's mouth opened as if she wanted to say something else, but she simply slammed the door and rushed out. My heart was still pounding as I reclined against my pillows. I didn't feel like the loser for once. Chloe didn't have the final say for once. However, this was not the end. Chloe was someone I knew. She was unable to let it go. And, truthfully, I was prepared for everything that might happen. Chloe doubled down following that explosion in the corridor. She was too intelligent for me to be directly targeted by her. However, the tiny digs became more frequent and intense. Remarks regarding my attire, my friends, or lack thereof, my gait, and my breathing. My makeup bag was thrown into the sink when I entered the bathroom one morning. It was all soaked and damaged. Chloe was brushing her hair in front of the mirror. She said, "Oh," as she looked at me in the mirror. "Did I accidentally knock that over?" I tightened my jaw. "Seriously?" Chloe grinned. "Relax, Hannah. It's not like anyone notices your makeup anyway." I balled my hands into fists. "You're such a—" She cut in, careful, her smile hardening. "Dad wouldn't like to hear you talking like that." I parted my lips, then shut them again. It wasn't worthwhile. According to Chloe, that's what I thought. As she tossed her hair over her shoulder, I felt like screaming. And it wasn't just at home. Chloe's pals would accidentally run into me in the hallway at school. I started hauling my books around since my locker kept jamming. My backpack was packed with gum by someone. The worst thing, though, was that everyone else thought it was normal, as if this was the way it was meant to be. I was the shadow, and Chloe was the bright girl. Nobody questioned it. Emma snuck into the seat across from me one day, while I was sitting by myself in the library. I used to be close friends with Emma, prior to Chloe ensuring that was prohibited. "Hey," she said. I blinked. "Hey?" Emma looked down at the table. "So, I heard about the formal." My chest constricted. "What about it?" "I don't know if you heard, but Ethan dumped Chloe," Emma said, her eyes darting to me. My heart stopped beating. "What?" Emma nibbled on her lip. "Yeah, yesterday. Apparently, Chloe got mad at him for talking to some girl at the gym and threw a drink at him." My chest began to flame up strangely and dangerously. "Seriously?" Emma gave a nod. It was a whole thing. My heart was pounding as I reclined in my chair. Wow. Anyway, Emma's fingers fiddled with her bag's strap. I was thinking, You and I used to have fun at school dances. I went cold. Yeah, Emma grinned. Maybe we could go together. Not like as dates or anything, just as friends. I felt a fracture open inside. Yeah, I responded in a quiet voice. That sounds nice. Emma grinned broadly. Cool. We can figure outfits this weekend? Yeah. Okay. Emma got up and fiddled with her luggage. Cool. See you later. I stayed there for a while after she departed, feeling oddly light in my chest. When I entered the kitchen that evening, Chloe was there. She was using her phone to browse while seated at the island. She gave me a quick glance. With a Chloe put her phone down. You hear the news? I inquired. About you and Ethan? Chloe's mouth clenched. Whatever. He was boring anyway. Sure. She squinted. You think this changes anything? I gave a small smile. I think it already has. Chloe's lips twisted. Just remember you're not me, Hannah. You never will be. Thank God for that. Chloe's eyes became gloomy. Careful, she cautioned in a stern voice. I leaned in her direction. You don't scare me anymore. She made a narrow line with her mouth. Before she could utter another thing, I left. The formal took place on Friday evening. Laughing as we assisted each other with makeup, Emma and I got ready at her residence. I borrowed one of Emma's outfits, a plain blue one that gave me a real sense of beauty. Ready? Emma said, clutching her hand. I grinned. Ready. I didn't feel like the odd one out as we entered the gym together. The lights were dim and the music loud. Already, people were laughing, dancing, and snapping photos. Almost instantly, I saw Chloe on the other side of the room. She had a gloomy look on her face as she stood with her buddies. Ethan was close by, chatting with an unknown girl. Chloe looked into my eyes, her face become angular. I grinned. After that, I grabbed Emma's hand and dragged her over to the dance floor. My feet hurt after we laughed and danced. It was effortless, naturally, as if I wasn't the one who was broken. As if Chloe wasn't the universe's center after all. Ethan drifted toward me at one point. He grinned. Hey, Hannah. Hey, I said. He remarked. You look nice. Emma's eyebrow went up. I grinned. Thanks. I'm good. Ethan paused his smile. Yeah, okay. Look at you, Emma mocked as she nudged me as he left. I chuckled. It also seemed genuine. I went outside to get some fresh air halfway through the night. My skin was touched by the refreshing night breeze. Hannah, I pivoted. Standing there with her arms folded was Chloe. Her gaze were cold and piercing. She remarked, Nice dress, thanks. You think you're better than me now? No, I muttered. I think I'm better than I used to be. A snarl twisted Chloe's mouth. You'll never win, you know. This isn't a competition. Everything's a competition. I gave a headshake. Not anymore. I could feel her eyes piercing my back as I passed her. I didn't care for the first time. Emma was waiting inside. When she saw me, she grinned. Everything okay? I returned the smile. Yeah, and I truly meant it for the first time in a long time. Things changed after the formal, but they didn't get better overnight. Overnight, Chloe continued to be herself. Across the breakfast table, she continued to give me stern stares. When I went by, her buddies continued to whisper. Furthermore, our parents still had no idea what had transpired. However, something had changed within me. I was in the kitchen brewing coffee one Saturday morning when Chloe entered. She had her hair up in a high ponytail and was dressed for a workout. As she watched me, she leaned against the counter and said, Emma's been hanging around a lot. I stirred my coffee and shrugged. Yeah, we're friends again. Chloe's lips curled. I thought you'd moved past that, I retorted. I thought you'd moved past Ethan. Her eyes blinked. Careful. With a groan, I put down my spoon. Look, Chloe, I'm done fighting with you. Her head was cocked. Really? Yeah, I replied, because it's not about you anymore. She laughed. Whatever that means. It means you don't have as much control over me as you think. Chloe's mouth clenched. You really think you're special now? I gave a small smile. No. I just don't think you are either. Her gaze grew gloomy. I thought she may say something scathing for a moment, but she turned and left. That was Chloe's problem. She quickly lost interest if she couldn't control you. After that, Emma and I began spending more time together. We would either sit in her room and listen to music, go to the mall, or have coffee. It was as simple as resuming a conversation we had begun years before. People began to notice the change at school. Although other individuals began chatting with me, Chloe's gathering remained her audience. I received invitations to parties, as did Emma. I stopped standing on the periphery of conversations and began to participate. Emma and I were seated beneath the bleachers one afternoon when Ethan approached. He rubbed the back of his neck and murmured, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" Emma gave me a raised eyebrow. With a sigh, I got to my feet. Ethan drew me away, looking uncomfortable. "Look, I wanted to say I'm sorry about the way I acted before." "Okay," I replied. He went on, "And for what Chloe did, it wasn't cool." "No," I replied. "It wasn't." Ethan stood up and shifted. "So maybe we could hang out sometime?" I gave a courteous grin. "I think I'm good." Ethan blinked. "Oh, yeah, cool." I felt lighter as I moved back toward Emma. "Seriously?" smiled Emma. "Seriously." At home, things remained complicated. I never received an apology from my parents. It's likely that they were unaware of the difference in Chloe's treatment of me. However, there were minor details. Mom entered my room one evening. It was the first time she knocked. She said, "Hey," as she hovered in the entryway. "Dinner's ready." "Okay." She paused. "How's school?" I blinked. "It's okay. Good," she remarked with a faint smile. "That's good." Even if it wasn't much, it was something. Dad, however, was more difficult to break. He continued to gaze at Chloe as if she were the moon. At the dinner table, he continued to listen to her first. But occasionally, as I spoke, his eyes would dart to me, as if he was aware that I was here. That was a work in progress, I thought. Emma and I were sitting on the porch one afternoon when Chloe got home. She exited the vehicle while wearing sunglasses and browsing through her phone. She said, "Hey," without raising her gaze. "Hey," I said. Emma gave me a startled expression. At the front door, Chloe stopped. "We're going shopping tomorrow. You coming?" My brows went up. "Me?" Chloe's eyes grew piercing. "Yeah, unless you're too busy." Emma gave a cunning smile. I took a moment to study Chloe. Although she wasn't grinning, her tone was softer. "Sure," I replied. "Why not?" With a nod, Chloe entered. Emma pressed me. "What was that?" she said. I gave a shrug. "I have no idea." A week later, Dad took Chloe and me to the mall, where we sat in the back seat. Chloe was browsing through her phone while discussing some influencer drama. Chloe abruptly remarked, "You know, you're not completely hopeless." I grinned. "Thanks," she went on. "Don't let it get to your head," I chuckled. "Wouldn't dream of it." Chloe's lips quirked. I didn't feel like I was holding my breath around her for the first time. The strain was no longer overwhelming, but it was still there, and probably always would be. I wasn't awaiting her blessing. I had no intention of outrunning her shadow. I was simply me, and that felt like enough for the first time.